Here's a moment that happens in almost every serious lateral partner conversation. The firm asks you to describe your book of business. They want to understand your client relationships, your origination, your revenue. It's a necessary part of the evaluation, and there's no way to avoid it. But here's the tension. You have professional obligations of confidentiality to your clients. You also have a strategic interest in not disclosing more than necessary at a stage where you don't know yet if this opportunity is real. And you're being asked to thread the needle between being substantive enough to be taken seriously and careful enough to protect yourself and your clients. Most attorneys handle this badly, either oversharing in ways that create confidentiality problems or being so vague they can't properly be evaluated. I'm Andrew Wilcox, legal recruiter since 2003. Today, I want to give you a framework for how to discuss your book of business in a lateral interview with the right balance of transparency and discretion. The first principle: understand what the firm actually needs to know and when. Do we want to clear conflicts and figure out if there are already showstoppers before we get 7 or 8 interviews in? Or is this something that they're just doing fishing on? In the early conversations, the exploratory calls, initial meetings, the firm doesn't need client names. What they need is a general understanding of the size and composition of your practice. Industry sectors, matter types, revenue ranges, the number of significant clients, your role in those relationships. That level of detail is sufficient to determine whether there's a serious mutual fit worth pursuing. And it can all be communicated without identifying specific clients. In later conversations, when you're past the exploratory stage and the firm is conducting a genuine evaluation and conflicts check, they'll need more specifics: client names, matter details, revenue figures. That disclosure is appropriate and necessary at that stage, but really only at that stage. And different firms do this in different ways. Sometimes it's layered, sometimes it's over 2 or 3 different steps. Again, clearing conflicts if there's a showstopper, or they're just trying to have an initial idea if this is worth moving forward or not. But the mistake attorneys make is giving detailed client information either too early, before they know whether the opportunity is serious, before they've established trust with the firm, and before the firm has demonstrated genuine interest. Sometimes I get client lists sent to me with resumes, and they want me to forward it on and all that. I don't like doing that initially. But the stage the disclosure to match where you are in the conversation. Let's figure out how to describe your practice in general terms effectively. When you're in early conversations, and you want to convey the substance of your practice without naming clients, here's how to do it effectively. Organize your book by category, industry sector, client type, matter type, and speak in terms of those categories. I represent a significant portfolio in private equity. The clients that are in the middle market transactions. I have several major healthcare providers in regulatory and transactional work. I have long-standing relationships with a family of companies in the manufacturing sector. That description tells the firm what they need to know. You have a diversified book. You have meaningful relationships. The work is sophisticated, and it does all of that without identifying anyone. They also want to know the proportions. Is all of your work tied up in a handful of clients? What happens if those clients don't come over? Is it 80% of your work comes from one client? What happens if that doesn't come over? So having a diversified book of business and then being able to talk about how you've developed it and how you would transfer it. When they ask about revenue, give ranges. My annual originations over the last 3 years have averaged in the range of $2.5 to $3 million. My total billings, including work I service for other partners, clients, run higher, in the 4 to 5 million range. Ranges are more comfortable to disclose than exact figures at this stage, and they give the firm enough information to evaluate the economic fit. Chances are they're going to risk adjust that number down anyway. the framework for what's okay to discuss and what's not. General industry sectors are totally fine. I represent clients in the energy sector, healthcare, financial services. Client names when the representation is publicly known is generally fine, with some caveats. If your representation of a client is a matter of public record, you're listed as a counsel in public filings, the engagement has been covered in the press, the client lists you on their website, there's no confidentiality issue with identifying that client. But even here, I'd say be strategic. Don't name more clients than you need to in order to make your point. Client names, when the representation is not public, require significant care. Many clients, particularly in regulatory matters, sensitive transactions, or litigation, expect that the attorney-client relationship itself is confidential. Disclosing those relationships without consent, it can be a breach of your professional duties. When in doubt, don't name the client. Describe the work in anonymous terms. A significant financial institution, a major health system, a privately held manufacturing company. Specific matter details, strategy, or facts never appropriate without client consent. Even in later stage conversations where you're sharing client names for conflict purposes, you shouldn't be sharing the substance of what you've done for those clients beyond general descriptions of the type of work. So, what to say when you're asked for more detail than you're comfortable providing? Most firms know what the guardrails are, but sometimes they'll press. You will inevitably be pressed for more detail than you want to give early in a process. The right response is direct and professional. I'm happy to provide that level of detail as we get further into the process, and I have confidence that this is a serious mutual fit. At this stage, I would be careful about client confidentiality and about not over-disclosing before I'm confident in that direction we're heading. I think what I've shared gives you a good general picture of the practice, and I'm glad to go deeper when we're both ready to do that. That response does several things well. It acknowledges the request. It gives a legitimate reason for the boundary. It's respectful. And it signals that you take professional obligations seriously, which is actually a positive signal to a sophisticated firm. So how and when to disclose those clients' names for conflict purposes? Okay, at some point, typically when the firm has made it clear they're seriously evaluating you for an offer, they'll need to run a conflicts check. This requires client names. The way to handle this is to provide a written list of your significant clients with names, brief descriptions of the representation, and approximate revenue directly to the partner who's managing your recruitment process or to the firm's conflicts team, with an explicit understanding that this information is confidential and will be used solely for conflicts evaluation. Do not send this list broadly. Do not include it in application materials that will be circulated among people. Provide it in a controlled way to the people who need it, when they need it, and with a clear understanding of its sensitivity. You don't want firms that are going on a fishing expedition trying to find out about clients that may be theirs to poach. The line you should never cross. There are some disclosures that create real problems, and you need to recognize them as such. Never disclose information that the client has explicitly told you is confidential. There's no new news with that. Never disclose information about active matters where the substance of the case, the strategy, or the facts are sensitive. Again, seems like common sense, but it happens. Never disclose information that would be giving a competitive advantage to the firm you're interviewing with if they represent an adverse party to one of your clients in unrelated matters. And never disclose information that you wouldn't be comfortable having get back to your current firm or to your clients, because information once shared is never entirely controlled. So, a final thought on trust, and this is a big step in trust. It's also a watershed moment. When candidates start sharing client lists and firms start sharing conflicts and numbers, that's a pretty good sign. But it is something you're giving up. It's control that you're giving up. And you're hoping that there's a good reason for that. The disclosure conversation is partly about professional responsibility and partly about trust. You're deciding whether to trust the firm with information that, if it's mishandled, could damage your client's relationships and your professional reputation. That trust should be earned, not assumed. A firm that respects your boundaries early in the process, that doesn't press you for more than what's appropriate, and that handles the information you do provide with care, is a firm that's showing you they can be trusted. A firm that pressures you for detailed client information before the relationship warrants is telling you something about their judgment and their priorities. Pay attention to how they handle this. It's very revealing. I'm Andrew Wilcox. This is a Lateral Brief. If you'd like to have a confidential discussion about your career goals and your practice, please email me at andrew@wilcox-legal.com. As always, grateful, Andrew Wilcox.